दे गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुः सुरासुरगणा देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
We still have a couple of minutes, so I will be back. ॐ नारायणः परो व्यक्तात् अण्डमव्ययसम्भवम् अण्डस्यान्तस्त्विमे लोकाः सप्तद्वीपा च मेदिनी ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः. Verse number 16, chapter 2, and you will hear me say that a lot because we will be on this verse for a little while because of the very important and involved bhashya here, which we will try to summarize in a way that is easy to assimilate. Just looking for where we stopped. नासतो विद्यते भावः नाभावो विद्यते सतः नासतो विद्यते भावः नाभावो विद्यते सतः उभयोरपि दृष्टोऽन्तः त्वनयोस्तत्त्वदर्शिभिः उभयोरपि दृष्टोऽन्तः त्वनयोस्तत्त्वदर्शिभिः. We saw that the meaning of this verse is centered on the first line. That is the main thing about this verse, is that it is the whole meaning is there in the first line itself. And that one thing we saw. The other thing we have seen is that it is a little cryptic, to say the least. And the third thing we have already seen last week is that the the understanding of asat and sat has to be properly affixed. Otherwise, if we translate asat as non-existent, then or non-existence, then we are in a lot of trouble. Already alienated, already disconnected, already half the time have spaced out, and what about the other half the time having an out of body experience. And so the question of real and unreal is already happily confused in the brain. And so we have to be very clear on what Vedanta and the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita and Adi Shankara in the tradition, what they mean by Sat and Asat. And this, and this we have seen to a certain extent, but just to flush that out and to bring everybody to par on the same page, I will just say that a one-line definition, Sat is used for something that navyabhicharati, does not change, does not alter, cannot be negated. And asat is not used for describing something non-existent, but for talking about that which is dependent on something else. As soon as you look into the reality of that which Vedanta describes as asat, then you find that it is dependent on something else. Then you say, oh, I'm catching the wrong thing, I have to catch this, and you catch that, and then it falls apart in your hand. Because that other thing is also dependent on something else. And we've seen this, shirt. Shirt is something close to you, literally, because it is close to your chest. A t-shirt, and then what? T-shirt is a name and form, and it is dependent on fabric. And if you were to be very clever and argue that I'm wearing a shirt made of newspaper, okay, the fabric of the shirt here is newspaper. Or I'm wearing a raincoat, it is plastic, still that is the material. So if the point is not, the point still stands, and what is that? That the shirt is dependent upon fabric as or any material as its cause. And then you say, oh, I now know the cause is fabric, but then it is not a causeless cause. The fabric has one tata, and that is called yarn. Yarn is the boss, and then fibers, molecules, atoms, you can go all the way. And so therefore this idea of everything being real that we encounter in the world has to be dismissed. This is what Shvetaketu was told in the 6th chapter of the Chandogya Upanishad. And what was Shvetaketu told? Shvetaketu was told that this Jagat was what? Was Sat. Before it came into a state of manifestation, it was Sat, it still is Sat. Sat plus name and form. This is how we have to see. And the meaning of the word asat here is basically Sat qualified, as it were, or blessed by a certain name and form. That's all we have to see. And so if we look at it this way, then the meaning becomes very clear. So what does it say? The verse seems to say that Sat and Asat, as described here, have nothing to do with one another. Asataha bhavaha na vidyate. Asat can never on its own become Sat. Because it is simply that which is finite, which is changeable, and which, whose isness, and now we can use this word, whose isness totally depends upon that which is the source of all is. And if you look carefully, the is resolves into I. That is why the first letter of is I. Okay? That's all it is. So it all is. Pot is, thought is, mat is, cat is, rat is. So what do they all have in common? Oh, I know. I can answer that. What do they have in common? They all rhyme and they end in at. No, wrong. For the Vedanta purposes, that is not what they have in common. Cat, mat, rat, hat, bat. What do they have in common is that they are all, as it were, qualified, and again I use quotes here, qualified by the word is. Rat is, hat is, cat is, mat is, bat is. But which bat? The one with which you hit the ball, or the one that is flying around, doesn't matter. So we can say bat is twice. So both of them are covered. So here what they have in common is. And on the face of it, you think that all these words are qualified by the word is. And again here we stand corrected. We have to do Shirsasana, meaning we have to do a little headstand here, a cognitive headstand, to see that it is not the is, that is, it is not that, all these words are qualified by the word is. It is isness, it is the isness, existence, sat, that is as though is as though qualified by rat, cat, hat, mat, bat. That is how we have to see it. Sat in the form of rat, sat in the form of bat, cat, mat. So same thing, we say clay pot. We make a mistake because we look at the pot as the substantive and clay as something that qualifies, is an attribute. That's not the truth. Clay is the substantive, pot is an incidental attribute to clay. Very, very important to see this. And this is exactly what this verse is honing in on. It is honing in on the mistake that we make in the world when we look at a name and form, a nama rupa, connected to a particular thing, and think of it as the real thing. Think of it as something that is that is substantive, and the is incidental. So we should not say clay pot. And of course it sounds terrible to say potty clay. So therefore we should just leave it as it is. Golden chain, same thing. This was the Shvetaketu's second example. Golden chain. Uddalaka just talked to him about gold and chain, and talked about how it is the gold that is the substantive. It is chain and gold, not golden chain. And and if you make a bangle, it's bangly gold. If you make a ring, it's ringy gold. Gold in the form of ring, gold in the form of bangle, gold in the form of chain. Ringy gold, bangly gold. If you start talking like this, people will just back off slowly, okay, from you. So, thinking something is wrong. That's why we need satsang and classes like this, where we can establish our sanity and feel happy. And so this is basically we have to stand our understanding on its head, because and why to do this? Why to do this headstand? The reason to do the headstand is that the non-understanding of this is the cause of sorrow. Because one falls with the emphasis on fall, one falls in love with the nama rupa, whereas one is actually in love with that sat as oneself. Sat being oneself, one can never be away from oneself except through self-ignorance, which is being corrected by self-knowledge as we speak. And so therefore one can never be away from oneself, but yet there is disconnection, there is a yearning, there is alienation, and because of these broods of self-ignorance in the form of disconnection, alienation, desire, fear, anger, sorrow, etc., that leads one to go and search for the thing. And the thing is, anything that is in front of oneself, that is fulfilling the yearning at a particular point in time. And this is why there is samsara. This is why there is sorrow. This is why there is fear. This is why there is all kinds of strife, klesha, etc. And so that is why this has to be corrected. And this verse is, what should I say? Vedanta in a short form. Vedanta, shorthand Vedanta is this verse. And so that's why it is important to see this very clearly, and what is being talked about. And we have already entered a little bit of the bhashya, and where he connected it very nicely to the previous verse, which is talking about observing with dispassion sensations that one cannot overcome: heat, cold, sorrow, happiness, etc., to be able to observe. Why to be able to observe? Because they are all asat. They all depend upon you. Without the sense of touch, there is no heat, no cold. Without the awareness, the mind, awareness shining in the mind, there is no sense of I feel sadness, I feel anger, that is not understood. And so they are all this interdependent reality called as Vyavaharika Satta. There is a certain reality to it, but it is not ultimate. And when the empirical reality is confused for the eye and is seen as ultimate, sorrow and samsara, they are actually one and the same thing. Samsara ensues. This we have seen. And then the Bhashya says, Vikaro hi saha. Vikara means they are all modifications, as it were. And we can't even say modifications, we have to use our air quotes, as though modification, because Sat is never subject to modification, just like gold is never subject to modification, yet we can make out of it an ornament. Vikaro hi saha. It is just a kind of as though transformation and as though modification. And one thing we know about vikara is vikarascha vyabhicharati. Vyabhicharati. Meaning, one thing we know about vikara is that it keeps on deviating, changing. It is keeping on changing. And then he gives an example. Yatha ghatadi samsthanam chakshusha nirupyamanam mrid vyatirekena anupalabdhehe asat. तथा सर्वो विकारः कारणव्यतिरेकेण अनुपलब्धे असन. This is very important. This line is very important. What does it say? It brings to light the definition of the word asat as a dependent reality. Yatha, just as ghatadi, pot, etc., samsthanam, the existence, is established how chakshusha nirupyamanam. So the proof, so to speak, of the pot, etc., is in the sight of the pot. And then what? Upon closer examination and inspection, we see that the pot is unavailable without clay. And what is clay? Its respective karana. So the pot is totally dependent upon its karana, clay, mrid vyatirekena, other than the mud, the earth, the clay, anupalabdhehe asat, because it is not available for objectification as a pot without the presence of clay, its cause. Therefore we call it unreal asat, not unreal, a dependent reality, mithya. Tatha, in the same manner, think of all the things in the universe, they are all vikaras. One is falling in love with vikara after vikara after vikara after vikara. This is what it is. One is falling for the vikara, and then the vikara unravels and becomes one with its cause, and that cause unravels and becomes one with its cause, and its cause, it's unending. And so therefore there is this sense of hit and miss, there is the sense of disappointment. And so the point he's trying to make is that nothing is separate, that we call mithya, in this whole world of nama and rupa. Nothing can exist outside of its cause. Sarvo hi vikara, all the vikaras, what? Karana vyatirekena anupalabdhehe, because they are not available for objectification, because they are so intrinsically connected to the cause, because without their cause they fall apart, they are called mithya, asat, as good as non-existent. And then when you look into that cause is also has another cause, another cause, another cause, another cause. So everything is because of something else. And so this is the very important to understand, because what happens is that in the everyday affairs of transaction, going, coming, eating, drinking, having certain beliefs and having certain ideas, etc., etc., this is very, 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 very easy to forget, completely easy to forget. And one is not able to see this at all. It is easy to forget, and one is unavailable to see this, because each and everything becomes a huge thing. I have to have this, I have to do this, I have to get this. Why? Because upon this my happiness depends. See, here also there is a problem. My happiness depends upon this. And then so if your happiness depended upon that thing, then that thing becomes more bigger than you. And then when that much energy and that much importance is given to something which is an object of your sight, object of your senses, and the object can never be bigger than the subject, because the object depends upon you, the subject, to bring it to light. And so this is what is talked. So karana vyatirekena anupalabdhehe, because it is not able to be talked about outside of the cause, then it is called asat. And then and then he says one more thing. Why is it as good as non-existent? Janma pradhvam sabhyam prak urdhvam cha anupalabdhehe. Because janma means before the birth. Pradhvam sabhyam, before the birth of what? Our pot. What else? And after the destruction of what? The pot. It is not available for objectification. So because it is a vikara, because it is finite, then therefore it is called asat, or basically enjoying a dependent reality. So one would think that this was very, very clear, and one would think that, oh, from now I can move to verse number 17. But what, not so fast. Why not so fast? Because the four objections are mounted. And we will be just summarizing some of them. And one of them we'll be seeing in great detail, because it is important and it is very nice to look at that. And so four objections are mounted to this vision. So what are these objections? They are contentions based on one's own ideas about Sat and Asat. One's own ideas about what should be existent and what should be infinite and what should be non-existent, etc., and the confusion therein. So therefore, the first objection, we are coming upon it right now. What does it say? Mridadi karanasya tat karanasya cha tat karana vyatirekena anupalabdhehe asatvam tad asatve cha sarva abhava prasangah iti chet. This iti chet business is nice. Iti chet means what if? What if? What if what? Well, you say that everything unravels. Everything unravels into its cause and its cause and its cause. So like for example, we unravel the sweater and to yield woolen yarn. And then the yarn is unraveled to yield fibers. Fibers are unraveled to yield fur. Fur of what? Sheep. And then the sheep, of course, is, unraveled because the body of the sheep was not there before its birth. And then we have the mother sheep, not mother ship, okay, mother sheep. And then the mother sheep came from another mother sheep and another mother sheep. So the point is, if the woolen sweater is unraveled, then you are basically, it's like a dominoes effect, and the entire world of name and forms is non-existent. Well, hello, if you say yes, this is what we are trying to say, as good as non-existent, that's not what he's saying. He's saying that even Sat is non-existent. Iti chet. Even Sat is not, where is the proof that Sat doesn't fall apart in your analysis? Because if everything is the cause, effect, cause, effect, cause, effect, nothing would exist without its immediate cause. And if Sat is the cause of everything, and if that is your contention, then Sat also goes away. Then in such an event, that all that we perceive should be virtually non-existent. We are actually looking at a solid, the contention here is this. Let's understand the full gamut of its effect. So the contention is this, that we are looking at a solipsistic universe. Nothing really exists objectively. So even if we have a shared perception, like we are taking a walk and we see a mountain on the way. You are taking a walk in nature, we see some trees and mountains. You see the tree, I see the tree. Even though it's a shared perception, it's a solipsistic relative perception, because it has no basis in what we call Sat or reality. There is no such thing as Sat, blessing the existence of anything, because all of them are falling apart, because the cause falls apart, the effect falls apart. And if Sat is the cause of everything, everything is as good as non-existent. This is the contention. And we can see how this contention and where it is coming from, because if one is unused to this kind of a self-enquiry, or the inquiry into objects, inquiry into the Jagat, then the reason for this confusion is very, very clear, because one starts to unravel along with all the things one unravels. Okay, the pot is not there, okay, the thought is not there, and this is not there, and that is not there, everything is not there, not there, not there. Oh my God, am I here or not? This is where it has come to. And this is exactly illustrated very beautifully. This is exactly what happens to the student in the Viveka Chudamani. Viveka Chudamani, the head jewel of discrimination, the crest jewel of Viveka, wisdom, discrimination. Very famous work by one of the Shankaracharyas. And there, there is a passage, a Guru Shishya dialogue, and where the student is told, please remove cognitively all the things that do not belong, all the things that have the nama and rupa, all the things that keep changing, all the things that are not constant. Remove everything that is not constant, and then tell me what you experience. And the student, being a very sincere student, duly closes the eyes and then tries to cognitively remove everything. And then what remains is a sense of panic. He just bursts out, "Oh Guru, when you remove everything, nothing is there. Nothing is there. Oh no." And then the Guru says gently, "Don't fear, that cannot be the case. What about the one who says nothing is there? What about the witness of the nothing?" And that witness of the nothing is the Sakshi, that awareness of the fact that the awareness of the fact that things are changing. So when one is aware that something is changing, then it's only that unchanging, constant awareness in the form of that consciousness, which is the truth of the word I, that alone is blessing all the changes, and that is observing all the changes. Because you have to be changeless in order to observe the changes, you have to be still in order to observe movement. This is the laws of physics. If you are also moving, it's very difficult to observe movement. And say you cannot judge the movement. So that means that you are unchanging, you are constant, and when everything movable and moving and changing and transforming is cognitively removed from the equation, what remains is the witness of those, the unchanging witness of those changes, you as Sat. That is the meaning of the word I. And that is the meaning of the word Mahavakya Tat Tvam Asi. That Sat, the unchanging Sat, which has manifested as this whole universe of name and form, is really you. Not this body, not this mind, not these senses. And so this is, that is why the student in the Viveka Chudamani has a small baby panic attack, because he doesn't understand this concept of witness and witnessing. So to here, this Purva Pakshi cannot be blamed for having this mass mistake, committing this mass mistake upon Sat, and thinking that if everything goes away, there is no Sat also. Everything is this illusory universe, this solipsistic relative universe. I don't see it because it is there, I see it because I am projecting this kind of a universe of cause and effects, and the effects gone, the cause is also gone, because after all the effect is non-separate from the cause and depends upon the cause, and if Sat is the cause of everything, Sat is also gone iti chet. And then the answer that comes is na, no, not really. Sarvatra buddhidvaya upalabdhehe sadbuddhihi asadbuddhihi iti. So Adi Shankara says no. Awareness, sakshita, does not go. Awareness does not go. And if awareness is Sat, Sat is never absent. Sat is always present, and that Sat being you, you are always there. How do I know? Well, pinch yourself. And if you say, ow, that means you are there. You don't even have to go that far. If I say, are you here? Then the answer sometimes comes slowly. But I am never disappointed, because the correct answer comes. What is that answer? Yes, I am here. I'm here. You cannot deny this, you cannot negate this. But then, okay, I understand that I am this self-evident awareness, self-evident consciousness. I understand that very well. But what about the rest of the things as Asat? How do I experience that? And that's why Adi Shankara very beautifully brings in this Buddhidvaya argument. This is very, very, very important and a very unusual, unique argument. And without this, really, we cannot teach Vedanta. So it becomes a very important and salient pedagogy for both assimilating and disseminating Vedanta. So what is this dual buddhi argument, dual cognition argument he brings in? He says that in every cognition there are two aspects which he calls buddhis. In every cognition there are two components. What are they? So supposing if I say this is pot. So first, the pot buddhi shines. So I am admiring the pot. It is a cute pot. It is a glazed pot. And then it has some designs on it. And I say, oh, what a nice pot. Where is it from? What a beautiful pot. So the first component of this cognition is pot buddhi, which Adi Shankara in this bhashya calls asat buddhi, mithya buddhi, meaning the pot is an object and the light of awareness as I is blessing the pot with an existence and bringing it to light, so to speak, bringing it to be the object of my awareness, and so therefore I say pot. So first component of the cognition is pot buddhi. So here we are focusing on the wonderful glaze and the diagrams on the pot, maybe some carvings, the size of the pot, etc., etc., where it is from, the history of the pot, the name of the pot, the form of the pot, and this is what is called asat buddhi, or in other words, pot buddhi. Don't get confused, please, by the word asat, because asat doesn't mean non-existent. Asat means here pot buddhi. And then the second component in this cognition is buddhi. So if you look at the sentence carefully, this is pot. So there are two dual cognitions there. One is pot buddhi, one is buddhi. But aren't they the same? No. Here is where we make the mistake. We conflate the two, leading to sorrow. Because when the pot falls from the hand, becomes crack pot, becomes broken pot, then the heart also breaks and the sorrow comes. Why? Precisely because the pot buddhi and the is buddhi are conflated together, confused for one another, enmeshed together, are the pot buddhi and the is buddhi. But what is this pot buddhi? Pot buddhi is the focusing on the object, is that component of the cognition that shines the light on the object. That is what is called pot buddhi here. Ghata buddhi. And then what is that? Sad buddhi. Sad buddhi means this is pot. So the existence of the pot is, the pot is cognized as pot, one buddhi called asat buddhi, and the pot is cognized as existent, another buddhi. So the existence buddhi and the pot buddhi, we have to start looking at them as two separate entities, two different entities. But why? Why go through this intellectual rigmarole? Because this is how one immediately safeguards oneself from sorrow. How? Because the pot buddhi gets destroyed with the pot. Pot buddhi gets destroyed with the pot. And if the is buddhi is conflated with the pot buddhi, then the sense of destruction is experienced as up close, personal, and one is identified with the sense of sorrow, loss, separation, bereavement, shock, fear, anger, etc. You see the difference? And so the pot buddhi is cognitively separate from the other component in the buddhi, which is the is buddhi. Pot comes, pot goes. Pot comes and then gives a lot of delight, let us say, and then makes one delighted. Why? Because the pot buddhi and the is buddhi are shining together. So the separation is cognitive. It's a cognitive separation. And this is what is day-to-day Vedanta, experiential Vedanta, because we experience this without knowing. In every cognition there are two components. So the pot delights in not because of the pot, but because of the is buddhi. That we'll talk about much more later. But for now, the pot buddhi is when I am looking at the pot as a discrete object that has been brought to light by what? That awareness. And that awareness itself is buddhi. So when I say pot is existent, pot is, or this is pot. It is the is buddhi. Pot gets destroyed, and then what happens to is buddhi? Is buddhi remains as is, 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 I, is, is. Pot has a history. What is the history of pot? Janma pradvamsabhyam prak. Before, janmanaha prak and janmanaha prak, before the birth. And then pradvamsat urdhvam, after the destruction. Na upalabdhihi. No pot there is no pot to talk about. How do you know? How do you know that the pot was not there and then the pot is not there now? Pot wasn't there before its birth and the pot has disappeared after the birth. How do you know? Because the is buddhi shines. The is buddhi marks a little line. Like sometimes when people, very unfortunate habit, but when people go to state parks and all, they carve their name on a tree. I was here, and they put a date. Why? I don't know. The tree is a living being, okay? And why are you tattooing the tree? I don't know. But anyhow, so you see this, I was here. And that is the is buddhi, the awareness. So the awareness is there before and let's say unfortunately there was some kind of a fire or something, forest fire, and the park had to be closed for some time. So I was here when? Before the fire. And then I am here now after the fire and all the damage has been cleaned up, and I am here now, and I am I didn't see the fire, but I was there before the fire. Now I am here after the fire. And so it is the is buddhi that is constant. So the is buddhi marks the birth of the pot. Because of the is buddhi is like a little marker, and it marks the birth of the pot. And it marks the death of the pot. But it is always constant. Another example again from State Park, sometimes you go there in the redwood forest park, and then you find one big tree that had fallen, and it is a cross section of it is kept there. 2,000-year-old tree. And then there will be a small little pin with a little legend. The Vikings came. Oh my God, Vikings, yeah. Vikings came at this time. This was the birth of such and such a figure. Some big religious figure or some celebrity. So the tree itself is 1,500 years old, and all the things that have happened, this cross slice, the section of this tree based on the rings, each and every ring of the tree is its age, and then you have little markers of what all this tree saw. So is buddhi is like that. Is buddhi is the witness of the entire universe. And the sthiti of the entire universe it documents. And the collapse of the entire universe also takes place without really affecting the is buddhi. And that is why Adi Shankara calls the is buddhi as sad buddhi. Is buddhi is existent. Is buddhi is always there. Pot comes, pot goes. Is doesn't change. Why? Because the is transferred to crackpot. Crackpot is, broken pot is, powdered pot is, And if you say, oh, these are all fancy word games, why don't you just say pot is not? All right. What is the word that you are using to describe the non-existent of the word pot? Is. Absence of the pot is. Because even in the word, even in the sentence pot is not, I am constrained to use the word is. No other way. So these two buddhis are very, very separate. The I cognition and the not I cognition. Not I cognition here is called asad buddhi, I cognition sad buddhi. This is very, very important. So this is how he says, na sarvatra buddhidvaya upalabdhehe sad buddhihi asad buddhihi iti. Iti. And then he goes on to explain in his own words the difference between the two. Yadvishaya buddhihi navyabhicharati tat sat. So what is sat buddhi? When the consciousness of a thing, does not deviate, because that when awareness does not deviate, meaning the is doesn't deviate, is doesn't change. When that changeless is there, that is recognized, it doesn't change, that is called sadbuddhi. And then conversely, yad vishaya buddhi vyabhicharati tat asat. And so, and then conversely, whenever that which is the object of this I is buddhi, the object of this is buddhi keeps changing, pot, thought, cat, rat, mat, bat, etc., hat, then that is called asad buddhi. Iti sadasad bhage buddhi tantre sthite. This distinction of Sat and Asat is also because of Sat Buddhi, he points out. Very, very important. What does that mean? Because if the is Buddhi were not to be there, then the is not Buddhi cannot be, is not Buddhi connected to certain objects in time and space cannot be recognized. Further ramifications of this distinction, the pot buddhi, etc., the object buddhi is always finite. The subject buddhi is infinite. The presence of the subject buddhi lends its presence to bring the objects to light. Ultimately speaking, there is only sad buddhi. But since those are the object and the cognition of the object and the object itself are enmeshed, we need to do this initial and very important separation. Because without which, as I said, this is very crucial to understanding Vedanta. So the Sad Buddhi and the Asad Buddhi, what he calls, so one is awareness, one is the is Buddhi, and the one is what? Pot Buddhi, the is that qualifies, as it were, the is that qualifies the pot, the is that qualifies the thought, the is that lends its presence to a particular name and form which is being brought to light, which one is interacting with at a given time. And further he continues to make this clear. Sarvatra dve buddhi sarvaihi upalabhyete samana adhikarane. Very important. Samana adhikarane. In the same locus. Locus means what? When I am looking at a pot. So the adhikarana, the locus of this cognition is the pot. So in the same locus, you find both the buddhis there at the same time. In all our experiences of objects, the twofold cognition can be experienced in relation to the one and same locus. What does this mean? Very, very easy. Because we have already had a long discussion about this. This is very, very easy to comprehend. And what is this? This simply says that in one cognition, in one place, let us just take the pot. So in the pot, there are two components there when I look at the pot. When I look at the pot, pot buddhi is there. So I'm seeing and it's the same locus. Pot buddhi is there. I'm seeing that the pot is made of gold. Why not? It's in imagination we can afford to be rich. So the pot, its pot is made of gold, and then the pot has some beautiful carvings, designs on it. So it's a small pot made of gold. This awareness that this is pot made of gold, this awareness is there in the same locus that is called pot. And at the same time, the pot, alongside the pot buddhi, shines the is buddhi. What is this is buddhi? This is pot. Ayam ghataha. So ghataha is ayam ghataha, and this ghata sun. Sun means this buddhi, this pot is. So the isness of the pot, the existence of the pot shines along with the name and form called pot in the same locus that is pot. And so what is this existence of pot? Why should the existence of pot be separate from pot? This is the trick here. This is the key. When we understand this, that is then Vedanta becomes very, very exciting when we understand this. Why is the existence of the pot, being cognitively at least, being separated from the name and form called pot? Because that is how it is. So kamayat bahusyam praja yegeti satapotapyat satapastaptva idagam sarvam asrijat yadidam kincha tat srishtva tadevanupravishat tadanupravishya Satchatyacha bhavat. Taittiriya Upanishad. And what does it say? This Sat in the form of Bhagavan. Saha, this Bhagavan, akamayat, desired. And what did Bhagavan desire? Bhagavan also has desires. I thought it was only my problem. No. Bhagavan's desires are basically in tandem with the jiva's desires to be brought out of a state of latency, so to speak, and to be manifest in keeping with whatever they want to fulfill, whatever they want to pursue. And what did Bhagavan desire? Bahusyam prajayeya, may I be many. And that Sat in the form of Bhagavan, equipped with Maya Shakti to create, etc., which is one and the same, and wielding this Maya Shakti, which is non-separate from Bhagavan, Bhagavati, Bhagavan are one and the same. And so this Bhagavan visualized, Satapotapyat, visualized the last cycle of creation, because it was just fabulous, and it was faultless, a flawless, creation. And so said, why reinvent the wheel? Let us see how I did it last time. Let us recall the components and do the same thing. Universe, 4.0. Why? Because it is Kali Yuga now. Okay. So let us do this. Let us do that. The same thing. Just a few changes here and there. And then, somebody marries somebody. And then somebody is the offspring of somebody. And we can just tweak a few things. So tapaha is not meditation. It's a visualization. Jnanameva tapaha. Mundakopanishad reminds us. And so this knowledge, which is non-separate from that awareness, which is Bhagavan, that Sat, that existent awareness, that sentient awareness, which is at once existent and at once free of limitations, visualize the universe. Idam sarvam asrijata. So to speak, created, so to speak, all the names and forms. And then, not content with creating, tat srishtva, having created the casing for all these names and forms, tadeva anupravishat, entered, so to speak, into all names and forms. So between the creation and the entry, what is the time gap? How long did it take? No time at all. In fact, the grammar is compromised here because of the constrictions of grammar. We have to talk like this. First he created, then he entered. There is no space here because time itself is yet to come. Space itself is yet to come. So it's not that creation is happening in time. Creation is not happening in time. That's why I've never been able to understand this. We have to understand it metaphorically. If the Bible says on the first day, on the second day, on the third day, it's that even we have to first see that the day itself, in terms of the space-time matrix, is itself part of the manifestation of the Jagat. It's not that the Jagat is created in time. And so there is no time except the time that it says to say, okay, he created, he entered. That's all. There is no time to speak of. It's a simultaneous and seamless entry, so to speak, the pravesha. This is called pravesha shruti. So this pravesha shruti illustrates this sadbuddhi and asadbuddhi very clearly, because this sat, as it were, has entered all names and forms. Names and forms depend upon sat, just as the pot depends upon clay, and without the sat there, all the names and forms depart. All the names and forms depart. The names and forms do not have a leg to stand on. They are animated by Sat. They are an object of love because of the presence of this existence. And so, in every name and form, the Sad Buddhi and the Asad Buddhi are found in one locus. This is what Adi Shankara is wanting to say. So, the pot is found also in the same place as pot, and then the pot is also found in the same place as pot. So then that is, if it is I, then it makes it much more interesting. So the pot is an extension of I. When I define myself as nothing but existence, then the pot is nothing but an extension of I. Bat, hat, mat, rat, cat is nothing but the whole universe. I bless. And this is what the Devi Sukta says. I bless everything that is there with my presence. Devi Suktam, very nice. Rigveda. I should look at it. Wonderful. So this is exactly what he is trying to say here. That sarvatrahi dve buddhi sarvaihi upalabhyate. In all our experiences, these two components of the cognition are very much there in all our experiences, and it is experienced, it is felt in relation to, it is obtained in relation to the same locus. Same locus. When you say pot is, the is buddhi and the pot buddhi coalesce together in the same place at the same time. Why? Because without is buddhi, without that awareness, without that existence, without the sat, there can be no pot. Sat buddhi can stay without pot, pot cannot stay without sat. This is why both of them are experienced in the same place at the same time. Well, I understand now. So, it is like the pot is the Sad Buddhi, the component which you call Sat is an adjective to pot. I get it. Like Neelaha Ghataha. What am I saying? Blue pot. And what is the answer? You have to shake your head vigorously. No. Why? The blueness and the potness belong to the same order of reality. And so, while the word blue as a color or gold, whatever it is, or clay can qualify the pot, Sat is not, qualifying the, Sat is not an attribute of the pot. Sat is not an adjectival. Sat is not having an adjectival function vis-a-vis the pot. And this is what he explains in the next sentence. Na Neela Utpalavat San Ghataha San Pataha San Hasti Iti Evam Sarvatra. So this is called a Viparita Drishtanta, an example to illustrate something which is not like something. So usually we have the Drishtanta, we say Yatha, just as. We have usually a similarity example. Here it is a dissimilar example called Viparita Drishtanta. And what is it saying? Neelotpalavat, like blue lotus or blue pot. Here I just took blue pot since we are talking about pot. But he says like blue lotus. Not like that. Why? Because when you say blue lotus, the blue is the has got an adjectival component to the lotus. Excuse me. So it is not like blue pot or blue lotus. But when you say cloth is ghatasan, patasan, sanhasti, elephant is there, pot is there, cat is there, and then all this, it's not like saying blue pot, blue lotus. It's not the same. Why? Because in the sentence or in the phrase blue lotus, blue pot, the blue is adjectival to pot. But when I say pot is, the is not adjectival to pot. The is a revealer of pot. Pot revealed is revealer. So there is a revealed relationship between the is buddhi and the pot buddhi. The is buddhi, he is going to further say, is constant, and the pot buddhi is replaced by elephant buddhi, replaced by lotus buddhi, replaced by cat buddhi. So therefore that is what he says. Tayoho buddhayoho ghatadi buddhihi vyabhicharati tatha cha darshitam natu sadbuddhihi. Of these two components, the awareness of the pot keeps changing. Awareness of the pot keeps changing, but the existence belonging to the buddhi, which is cognizing the pot, is constant. Pot keeps changing. So the awareness attached to the pot keeps changing, because now pot, now crackpot, now gone pot, now another pot. This keeps on changing. But that now is the is buddhi that never ever changes. This is what one has to assimilate, and we will, we are coming to the close of the first Purva Paksha, which we have seen in detail. The other three I will summarize, and if there is anything important, we will look at it more next week. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.